Once I got past all the exposition and the F-bombs at the beginning, I really enjoyed this movie. So it took me a little bit to get into The Rip, which is Netflix's latest original movie. It's directed by Joe Carnahan. I generally like the films that he has made, and of course this is no exception. It's also co-written by him and another gentleman by the name of Michael McGrale. It stars Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Stephen Yeun, Teyana Taylor, Sasha Calle, Kyle Chandler, and Scott Adkins. So it's a pretty interesting cast of characters, and it's inspired by some true events, which I'll touch on after a bit. But basically, what the story is about is this group of, I can't even remember what their unit was called. Started with a T, I thought, or had a T in it. It was a group of cops who would bust up these drug houses or whatever, like locations where there's illicit money. And in the very beginning of the movie, their captain gets murdered. And so suspicion has fallen on the team in general. In some ways, because of this mystery of this murder that happened and the events that occur as the story's progressing, I started to get the feeling that this was kind of Hitchcockian, and I really like that. Once that element settled in addition to some other stuff that had happened that really got me hooked into the story, I liked the mystery aspect of it because it is at its core a mystery about who is corrupt within this unit or this police department and who murdered the captain of this unit. It is largely contained to one location, though there are events that happen before that location. And then, of course, as things are leading up to a climax, events that happen outside of that location as well. The reason I had a bit of trouble getting into it is it's actually something that Matt Damon touched on during his recent podcast with Joe Rogan. He and Ben Affleck were on Joe Rogan, and they were talking about the process of making this movie and what Netflix had indicated to them at some point along the way that, you need to let people know what this story's about, like at the beginning, and, keep repeating this plot as the story's going on. So at the beginning of the movie, after the opening scene of the captain getting murdered, which is kind of, the hook for you, supposed to be the hook for you. It wasn't for me until later. You are introduced to the characters of Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. And there was a lot of exposition that's happening in the form of interviews that are being given with the feds and conversations with each other. And throughout all of this exposition, which was so obviously exposition, it's tricky to get that sort of stuff done sometimes. But in the midst of all of this, they were throwing F-bombs left and right, sometimes two or more in a sentence, in practically every sentence. And it got to be super distracting for me, you guys. And I'm not someone that's easily turned off by cursing in a movie. I don't clutch my pearls when I hear GD or the F-bomb or whatever. It doesn't generally bother me, but when it's thrown in so much, it reminds me of, I think it was Harlem Nights with Eddie Murphy. Same sort of thing. It's like that's all I can remember about that movie was all of the cursing. And after a while, that becomes a distraction because it feels so pointless. It feels needless. It feels like it's just thrown in there to make these characters come across a certain way when you really could have toned that down quite a bit. We already got the point about these characters. I digress. I stuck with it, or I went back to it the next night and picked up where I'd left off. And basically, since the captain is now gone, Matt Damon's character is put in the position of command, and he gets this tip about some big money at this location, and they go there. And once they get there, they realize things are a little bit bigger than they expected. And it becomes kind of this, it turns pretty suspenseful when you start to realize what is getting ready to happen, what's getting ready to descend on them, and also the fact that something isn't right within their ranks. And so I thought it was crafted very well. And once I got past the hump of that, first portion of it and got to when they arrived at the house, that was when I started to get really drawn into it and especially once they discovered what was there and started to realize the implications of what they had stumbled upon. You know, it struck me though, when they first showed up at the house, that the girl that had the house, she didn't have to let them in. Well, then we wouldn't have had a movie, but whatever. I just thought that was kind of funny. Like, boy, this story would have been over really quick if she just hadn't let them come in because they didn't have a warrant, you know? Anyway, whatever. There were several other things that I did enjoy about this. I thought the acting was pretty good. I thought the characters were pretty solid, all of them. Even the side characters or the more minor characters got decent enough time for us to feel pretty established with them, because it was a group of several people in this unit. There was Matt, Ben, Steven, Brianna, and I can't remember the other lady's name, but there were five main people involved in this story holed up at this house during all of the stuff that was happening. And I also like the way some shots were framed. It wasn't anything that was super new or super unique, but it's not necessarily something that you see all the time. So it stood out to me. And just one of those shots was there's a moment where a character is walking towards someone and all you see is that character's silhouette on the wall of like this overpass, a highway overpass. That stood out to me as something that was pretty interesting. I also liked the fight choreography in here. It felt authentic. It felt real. It felt not choreographed, which is key for good fight choreography. It came across as just this gritty struggle and tussle that, you know, like how fights look in real life. That's what it looked like. Also, there was a chase scene in here that I thought was done well. And the overall story and how things wrapped up, I really enjoyed it. And there is a dedication at the end to someone. I didn't know who this person was, so I looked it up and found out some interesting trivia about this story. The person who had the dedication at the end was someone called Jake William Cassiano. Now, he is the child of a cop who basically was part of the real life inspiration for this story, because this cop, his name is Chris Cassiano, he told Joe Carnahan about this event in 2016 that involved a Miami-Dade police raid that uncovered millions in hidden cash. And that was the inspiration. That's the real life, you know, inspiration. I'm sure elements of corruption and everything that's brought up in this story are pretty real, pretty true to life. But Chris's son, Jake, passed away at age 11, I think it was 10 or 11, from leukemia. And so elements of what happened to this child are woven into the story of the Rip. And I thought it was done in a very touching and tactful way. It's something that you find out about one of these characters and it becomes kind of a piece of the puzzle about this person. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give away really significant details, but I just found that pretty interesting. Another thing that I thought was funny, you guys, oh my gosh, so funny. There is a character in here. I'm not going to tell you his name because, like I said, I'm trying to keep things kind of, you know, vague for you. So you can go into this without knowing too much about specific details of the plot. But there's an actor in here. I think at least 2 or 3 times before this, I have seen him play a cop who ends up getting killed. That happened again in this movie. And when I realized who it was, I was like, are you kidding me? This guy is getting so typecast. He's one of those guys that you've seen him in a bunch of different things. Like, oh, I know that guy. I've seen him play in this, whatever. But I just thought that was pretty funny. To wrap it up, basically, I thought that The Rip was something that was quite fascinating, and it took, for me, an unexpected turn because I did not know specific details. I mean, I knew it was about these cops and corruption and stuff because I got that much listening to Ben and Matt talk about it on Joe Rogan. But for some reason, I didn't realize that this was going to be a story that primarily took place not only at one location, but in one night. So it's a very simple story. It's very well contained. I appreciated that it had that unexpected turn for me. I also really appreciated how tense it felt, how grounded, how suspenseful it was. I think if you're fans of crime thrillers, realistic action sequences, cop stories with a bit of an edge to it, I think you'll probably appreciate this film. So for now, that's all I have to say about The Rip. If you get a chance to check it out, most of you guys might have already seen it. I'm a little late getting to it. Let me know what you think. I might be doing a live stream with Deleted talking about this sometime soon. All right, that's it for now, you guys. Bye.